Good morning, Sean Rex Keenan. Welcome on VH Berries.
Thank you for having me, Victor. I hope you're well.
You're one of the most prominent actor of your area. All lands and ocean combined.
Of my postcode.
How are you doing today?
I am very well. I'm very honored to be on your podcast. So thanks for having me.
I am extremely grateful that you're starting your day by talking to Victor instead of disturbing and bothering Garrett Budge.
How do you know? Oh, you saw my Instagram, didn't you? Yeah, I love Gareth Budge. He's a friend of mine who he's addicted to sugar, and I always manage to capture him when he's about to indulge and have an insulin spike. So I kind of have been documenting him for a few years, and I documented him the other night when we were about to have some tiramisu. It was a good moment. We bond over our sugar addiction.
Those days, Garrett Budge blood sugar is running dangerously low, and you're preventing him from being productive on a daily basis and doing a follow-up to the systematic static and post-Nobel photo series.
What's this? His photo series? Because he's a photographer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I just named two of his photo series, and
yes.
I am basically telling you that you are ruining his productivity.
I know. Well, he's a very productive guy. He's very organized. But yeah, I love to mess up the schedule. But we surf together. We're surf buddies. So I actually have one of his photos on my wall right here. He gave me for my birthday. So he takes some really great photos.
This is very inspiring, Sean Keenan. And you just mentioned that it was a tiramisu with, on top of it, a gracious dark chocolate pouring.
A drizzle.
Which forms like a spider net shape.
Yes, that's right. Extra sugar, an extra sugar hit. Classically, a tiramisu would have a dusting of cocoa powder, but there's no sugar in that. So we were at our special spot where they give you that extra sweet spider web drizzle. It was chef's kiss. Very good.
The cake seems very good, and this net can also be connected to a fishing net that can be placed at the bottom of the ocean of television, for example, to better capture the meaning behind the Keenan filmography, because the way you approach all of your character is always very profound.
I mean, for me, it's maybe not so profound. I think I've always, bar when I was maybe younger, but I've been lucky to do work that I feel very, very emotionally connected to, and that just, my process of preparing for jobs starts there. I have a connection to the script. If I don't, I won't do it. So it starts there, and then I find myself going in whatever direction that curiosity takes me to prepare.
You're going wherever curiosity takes you, and I mentioned the word characters with an S because they are plural, but very recently there is also S for your character Sven. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So Sven was in Power of the Dog. He was one of the cowboys. And I mean, that job was, we shot that in New Zealand. And Jane Campion directed that film, and I've been a massive fan of Jane's work forever. Starting from her short films, which I love, and all up until now, every film she's made is so unique and has her unique vision and voice. And yeah, I mean, we played a kind of ensemble, a chorus of cowboys, if you will. And our roles didn't have necessarily that much dialogue, but we were present throughout the whole film, and it was a job I really wanted to do. To number one, to see some A-class actors working like Benedict Cumberbatch, Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst, and many others. But also to get the chance to work with Jane, who I know really values giving actors their autonomy on set to go about their process in the way that they see fit, and also fully immerse in the world. So I'd already learnt to horse ride for another job, but I got back in the saddle and we did a lot of horse riding. Which was great. We stayed in accent the whole time. You know, it was a really great exercise in acting, and also there was a guitar playing cowboy and in the script, and I knew that the characters were interchangeable, and we did a month of rehearsal, which was a luxury. You don't usually get a month rehearsal. If you're lucky, you get a week, 2 weeks. So we did a month, and that was when the dialogue and who our characters as these cowboys were, and we worked out backstory, and I knew I wanted to be the guitar playing cowboy. So I just brought my guitar to New Zealand, and I just said, I'm going to be the guitar playing cowboy. And in the end, Jane got me to write a little song, and we were all playing guitar by the end. One of the other boys bought a guitar, so there was a lot of music on set, and we were listening to a lot of fantastic country music, thanks to two of the other cowboys who were across from the States, and they were proper cowboys. And we had a great guy from up in Queensland who was a ringer, which is like a Australian cowboy. And so we had these wild guys who weren't actors, and then mixed in with that was about 5 of us actors who came from New Zealand, different parts of Australia, and one was a comedian. And we were there. We were these cowboys just rolling around New Zealand in a van for 3 months. And it was, my dad's from New Zealand, so it's I have a pretty deep connection to the place, and a lot of family there. So it was a really beautiful trip for me, because I hadn't been back since I was maybe 12, and I saw all my family. We had a 2-week break. We got to explore all the South Island, which I'd never been to, and it's absolutely stunning. And then I had 2 weeks off where I went and saw my cousins in New Plymouth, and we went on a mad fishing trip and surfing every day. So that was non-stop fun for me. That was a really, really fun job. And then to step onto that set around that was amazing. We had these incredible costumes, and we were shooting at the base of this mountain on private property, and you felt like you were stepping back in time. So pretty special job.
You had the feeling, Sean Keenan, to step back on time, and in definitive, your character Sven is a cowboy, and the story is taking place in Montana in the year 1925, which means that you had to have very special background, and that everything is from that specific area. For example, the tennis rackets, the hats, but also the banjo.
Yes, there was the banjo. Benedict was playing the banjo. So he did a pretty good job, actually. He was quite good at the banjo for how much time he had to prepare. But yeah, there was constant music on that set, which is a beautiful thing. There was always someone playing guitar. When we have a break between scenes, we'd get around, play guitar. We ended up playing. We had a big party midway through, and all us cowboys got up and played all our cowboy songs for the whole crew at Waiparoa, a little inn, which we completely filled up. So I don't think Central Otago knew what hit it. We had a whole film crew. But yeah, we were playing music the entire time, so it was really great.
And Sean Rex Keenan, you just mentioned that during your time off the set, you did with your cousin a Plymouth mad fishing trip. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? What was the result of that very specific adventure?
Well, my cousin is he's a bit of a wild man, my cousin Nick. So he lives in New Plymouth. He has 2 little kids, and he's a dad. And I hadn't seen him since I was 16, and him and my other cousin Aiden came to Bali when we were surfing in Bali with the family. And I remember just hanging out with those 2 boys and going, these guys they're mental. They would go out surfing all day, then they'd go drinking all night. And they were around 22, you know. So it was funny now, you know, for me to go and see him. Now he's a dad, and he's just as soon as I stepped in the door, he just said, "You're whānau, bro, anything for whānau," which it means family. So he gave me a surfboard, and he told me all the spots to surf, and he stayed and looked after the kids, and I went out for a day. And when I came back, I just was grinning ear to ear, and I stepped in, and he didn't even say anything, but he had his hand behind his back, and he just handed me a cold beer and just went, "Yeah." And we sat down and had a lovely dinner and some beers. And yeah, he's a great guy. Like, him and my cousin Aiden go out to the wilderness. They catch a helicopter out to the wilderness and go hunting. That's their passion. So he has all this meat in the freezer. They are mad keen fishermen. It's in New Plymouth, a marlin hotspot, which is a giant fish. So we went out marlin fishing. We'd go out fishing all day, and then he'd be like, "Oh, what do you say we go get some table fish?" And we'd go and just be pulling in snapper, and we'd go and have a barbecue. And yeah, it's an amazing place, New Plymouth, because it's got this mountain, Mount Taranaki, and it actually blocks out the weather. So where he lived was on one side of the mountain, but if there was bad weather, you'd hop in the car and drive to the other side, and it would be completely sunny and offshore, and you can actually see the break in the clouds where the mountain stops the weather. And I had a word for it. It'll come to me. But yeah, so we always were just surfing. He pretty much turned back into a kid, and I had possibly the best week and a half of my life, just on the break from this amazing job, getting to spend time with family. It was, yeah, it was everything I could have asked for and more. And then I saw more family in Christchurch. I went to this place, Little Akaloa, another beautiful place. I mean, New Zealand is just, every corner you turn, it's more and more amazingly, jaw-droppingly beautiful. So I was very lucky to have that time to see all my family. And I'll be going back very soon, I think, to see them all again.
You had the best week and a half of your life, Sean Keenan, and while you are doing this fishing trip, you don't have your eyes anymore on Gareth Budge and his blood sugar. This is a very sad situation.
Well, Gareth was messaging me. He was seeing the waves I was getting, and he was going, "Oh no!" He gets FOMO, so and I always check in to make sure he's eating a Snickers, and he usually is. So it's okay. It's okay.
Absolutely, the situation is now resolved. And to come back to that feature film called The Power of the Dog, as you just said just before, you don't have that much text by Tolkien, but you have, as you just said, a very special song called Goodbye Monterey, with very powerful lyrics. Put whiskey in my bottle, let the snow melt off, wash away my sorrow, I feel that honeymoon on me.
Simple lyrics, I would say, simple. Yeah, I mean, it was funny. Our characters, you know, we obviously we didn't have a lot of dialogue, but as Jane sat us all down and said, she said that's not what it's about. You know, it's about the energy of these characters. And without getting too mystical, but I mean, you know, I do believe that the energy you have on screen is kind of sometimes an undefinable quality, and often you can get so caught up in going, oh, my character's saying this or that, you know, and caught up in the words, which I think for theatre is vital. But for screen, you can have incredible power saying nothing, which is why screen is such a great medium, because it really does show the inner workings of your head. And I think she sat us down at the start and she said, just because these characters aren't necessarily talking all the time, it's important to hold on to that and remember that it's about the energy they bring into the moments that they're on screen. And then, I mean, we did a bit of, when we first got there, like I said, there were some non-actors on that job and guys who had probably been on camera for the first time to shoot their audition. And day one of that job, or day one of rehearsal, we all got to meet. We all came together. We were in Queenstown, and Jane came and met us all, and we did a few exercises. And then she goes, "Okay, now Benedict's going to come in character." So he was doing the method. So he came in character, and with Jesse, and we pretty much, I guess, had our first chance to interact and improvise as our characters. They let us go away and come up with a bit of backstory for each of our cowboys. But essentially, we played out a scene in the rehearsal room where we had to go and interview to work on the farm. So we'd say why we wanted to have the job and maybe where we'd come from. And it was a chance to kind of come up with a bit of backstory for our character. But of course, some of these guys have never acted before in their life, and suddenly they're improvising across from Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons, and they're, you know, so there were some shakes and sweaty palms going on. But we all kind of went away and we came up with little things for our characters. And I think I'd just seen the film Giant with James Dean, and it was set in Monterey on a bean farm, and I just thought, yeah, Monterey, mate. I think that's where my Sven comes from. You know, he's obviously of Swedish descent because his name's Sven, but you know, he was born and raised in Monterey, and then that was where that stuck, and it came into the improvisation we did that day, and a few other things I'd come up with for the backstory. But then when it came to writing a song, because we'd all been rehearsing for the month and playing our guitars and coming up with different cowboy songs, and Jane heard this through Rachel, who was coaching us or leading us through these rehearsals, and she got us all into the barn in the film, the barn where all the horses are, and she said, "I hear you've all been writing songs, and maybe you can play them." And she got everyone in, so all the actors in, Benedict, Jesse, Kirsten, and we all sat down and we essentially did a show and tell of these songs we'd been writing. And I played a song I'd written, which was maybe it was kind of a bit derivative of a few cowboy songs, and Jane liked that song, and but she said, but I don't want that song, but she said, I'd like you to play a song. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. What would you like the song to be? And she kind of didn't know what she wanted, but she knew what she didn't want. So I was like, would you like... I threw out a few examples of songs, and she was like, no. And she said, I want it to be to feel like the changing of season. Yeah. And I said, yeah, I can do that. But I think she wanted it to be not necessarily a lament, but you know, to have emotion of the changing of the season, but also the kind of the positivity of that, and the positive connotations of a change and a transformation. So I went away and I sat. We were in Naseby, this little mining town, and just sat down and started. I was just playing guitar all the time. I love playing guitar, and so I was playing guitar. And what happened? Jesse Plemons, who is actually fantastic singer and musician, he came to me after in the barn after Jane had said that and left, and he said, "Look, I can send you some songs, and they're really old songs, and they're great examples of where you could go if you wanted." And he sent me this song. What was Old Mike Pence, or I think that was it. I'll have to pull the name up, but it was this really jangly song, and it was Sail Away Ladies, Sail Away. That was the song that I heard that really got me into writing that song. And it was this kind of like, sail away ladies, sail away. It's kind of on the banjo, and it was really fast, but it sounded like it could have been written now, which I loved. And I was like, this is such a great song that he sent me. And I sort of started playing really fast and playing that song, and I just wrote those simple lyrics about saying goodbye to Monterey, and then kind of the change of season and the snow thaw washing away the sorrow of home, and just happy where you are, just sitting in the sun. So it's very simple. It was kind of a little jingle. And then on the day, I was actually a bit like, I kind of didn't know if it was any good, and you know, but the point was it didn't really matter, you know, the character's just playing a song. So I started playing it, and Jane's like, I love it, slow it down, and then played it for that scene. And yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great thing for me too, because I love playing guitar, and to get to do it for a character is always a joy. And it was just filming that scene. We actually had just such a beautiful day. It was one of those days where the air is completely still, and the sun, the light was so beautiful, and we're all just sitting in this field, you know, baling hay, going, can you believe that this is where we are right now? It feels, you know, fully transported. We felt really completely transported. So that was that. And there you go. I hope I get to do it again for another job. I'd love to.
This is very inspiring, Sean Rex Keenan, and absolutely that song Goodbye Monterey completely embody this concept of the change of the season. Because, for example, of the word snow next to the word melting. But I have to say something, which is that the snow has not been melting in Sydney for over a century now, because last time that you got snow, it was in year 1836.
Wow. So you know more than me. I didn't know. I did not know Sydney ever had snow. I didn't know. Look, if you can, we are we've got the bluest skies right now. It's a beautiful day today. It's autumn, but it feels like summer, which it might be a problem. But yeah, it's a pretty warm day.
This is a pretty warm day. The sky is very blue for you, but the sky also was very blue for the power of the dog, because this feature film won an Academy Award for directing and a lot of others very important success. How was your personal perspective on that? Because I assume that you maybe didn't expected all of those things to happen.
It's funny. I mean, yeah, I think awards are funny because when you're making something, you don't necessarily think about awards. It's kind of just a nice treat at the end to be recognized in that way, to even be nominated, you know. And I'm sure Jane feels the same. But I think we all knew just being on that set, and like I said, you know, we were a solid part of that. But I think the performances in that film are so amazingly nuanced, and the energy and the feeling of making it felt very special. So I don't think anyone was predicting or even trying to predict, but I think once it came up, it wasn't too much of a surprise to me, because I had witnessed it, and I thought, you know, I felt like it was, yeah, I was on a pretty special set, and so for that to happen, for it to be nominated in so many categories and win so many categories, was I just think a nice acknowledgement to how special that film was, and how unique of a filmmaker Jane is, because she really is amazing, and seeing her work is something in itself. She really is a master of her craft, and but she's an incredible collaborator. She has a great, you know, it was such a relaxed set, and it was also she has an amazing adaptability, and also she is a great collaborator. When she has her crew, she trusts them completely, and whether it's a DOP, her actors, you get this real feeling that it's not just you doggedly completing someone's vision. It's a complete collaboration, which is what a good filmmaker is able to do. So, yeah, it was a really inclusive and special job.
A very inclusive and special job, Sean Keenan, and I would love to talk about Western Australia and how it got all started, because I found that in this very special region of that country, there are as many square kilometers as there are inhabitants, with 2.6 million square kilometers for 2.8 million people.
That's right. Kilometre each. Yeah, I grew up in Busselton, which is about 3 hours south of Perth, and it's a little town. It's a beautiful little town. It's on the coast, and in the southwest, it's a beautiful wine region down there, and you've got really great surf. It's also very rugged. I mean, all of Western Australia is kind of desert meeting the sea, so it's very flat. You get a lot of wind, and it gets very hot, very hot. But growing up in Busselton was, I mean, you know, it was an experience that I think growing up in the country, it makes you gives you a great outlook on life, and especially, particularly somewhere that's so isolated. We had an incredible upbringing. Like, my dad is a mad keen surfer. Obviously moved from New Zealand to Sydney, met my mum, and then they moved to Busselton, and I have an older brother and sister who they're my half brother sister, and then my mum and dad had my twin sister and I. And there we were, family of four, growing up in Busselton. And my dad had his Toyota Land Cruiser, and we'd go every weekend. We'd drive, an hour, 2 hours, and surf pristine beaches, go to rock pools. You've got white sand, and you can find a beach that's completely empty, just to yourself. And we'd be jumping off the jetty. We were fishing. We were doing all the things a kid should be doing. So it was a really great upbringing we had, and I think it was. My dad worked out on the oil rigs up off Karratha, and he'd do 2 on, 2 off, and whenever he was back, it was just fun times, driving everywhere. And then when he was away, Mum would be in the Toyota Camry dropping us down at the beach all day, and we just come back completely fried. But yeah, it was a childhood I'm so grateful for, and I think it's I remember first moving to Sydney and having so much like wonder about the city. I never really moved to Perth. So I try and hold on to that sense of, I guess, wonder at wherever I am, because when you grow up in a small town, you kind of don't lose that sense of I don't want to say entitlement, but it's like when you grow up in the city, you have it all there at your fingertips, and I think it's important to remember that, it's kind of it is such a luxury. And I was there till I was 18, and that's where I started acting as well, which I can tell you about if you'd like.
Absolutely. You grew up in a little country town called Busselton, with turquoise-colored, tranquil waters and white sand. And Sean Keenan, I actually believe that you actually were parking your car near the Geograph Bay Road.
Geograph Bay Road, that's right. That was my old stomping ground. Geograph Bay Road is the waterfront road that runs along Busselton all the way up to Geograph Bay, and we have a kind of canal system with a bunch of houses on the water at the far end. So Geograph Bay Road, that's my childhood friend Tyler used to live on that road, and I'd be at his house a lot growing up. He was a very funny guy. But yeah, also Busselton, when they built the canals going out to make the kind of housing estate with all the houses on the water, so you could launch your boat, they did it slightly wrong, and what it ended up doing was it meant that in winter, all seaweed would stack and wash up on the beach. So Busselton Beach used to get completely covered in seaweed, almost the entire beach, almost like two meters high. I'll get a fly coming in here. Almost 2 meters high. And I still have very strong memories of my mum taking me and my sister down to play in the seaweed. We'd go play and come back just covered head to toe in seaweed. Seaweed would be just everywhere, but and we'd stink of seaweed. But that was kind of one of the adventures we'd go on. So we've got a visitor in this frame. It was fun times. Take me back to a 2 meter pile of seaweed and I'd get right in there.
In definitive, Sean Rex Keenan, this is what we can call a beautiful mistake by making that mistake of construction when they were building the port. And as you just mentioned, it all started in Busselton with what I can call a big talk around a little city concerning one of your very first role for a television series. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes. So, how I first started with the acting was, I was 13. Oh no, I was 12. I was in primary school, and we have a fantastic writer in WA called Tim Winton, and he writes beautiful books about the Southwest, almost all set in the Southwest. And he's one of Australia's best writers. And he had written these books about growing up a young man in a country town. And they were called, the books were Lockie Leonard, because that's the name of the young boy turning into a man. And they were making a production of these books into a kids' TV show, and they were doing a what we call an open casting call. So they do a cast all over Australia, but also cast in country towns in Western Australia, particularly because I think the producers had made the decision that they would obviously audition young actors for this role, but they were open to a non-actor playing the lead role of Lockie Leonard, who is this young kid. And so there were some posters around town of open casting call for Lockie Leonard. You can go and audition, and it was this kind of talk of the town. And I remember my friend at school, we're on the basketball courts, and he goes, "Yeah, Mum's got me an audition for Lockie Leonard this weekend." And I just remember going, "How do I do that?" I was like, "How do I want to go for that?" And but I just felt so. I think I didn't know. TV was just such a foreign thing. I was like, you can't just choose. I didn't even know about. We didn't really do drama at primary school, and I was like, you can't just choose to be an actor. Like you, I didn't even really. I was like, maybe I should try that, but I didn't go about doing it. But then the production actually sent letters out to schools. So they sent letters out to schools in all the Southwest, I assume, and maybe other parts of WA, saying to principals, they sent them to the principals saying, can you choose 5 kids who you think might be good to go on an audition? So, which I don't know if that's common practice, but they did that. And our principal, Tim, chose me and 4 other kids. And I was a student counsellor at the time, so I would speak in front of the school. And I guess I had a level of confidence in front of an audience. And it was kind of this sort of fortuitous thing where I'd been there going, oh, I should do that. But I kind of didn't talk to my mum about it. And then he chose these 5 kids, and I ended up going along to the audition. And I did the first one, and that was my first time like acting in front of a camera. But I think also in our family growing up, we used to, officially acting in front of the camera, but we used to actually put on plays for our parents, I guess. So without really knowing, we would, I had a great friend who lived across the road from me growing up, Josh, who was a really creative guy, and he was obsessed with shows like X-Files, and he loved Jaws, and I think his mum let him watch a lot of scary movies when he was young, so he was 2 years above me. But he would just constantly be making up different situations when I was growing up and a young kid, and we'd be acting them out. And me, him, and my twin sister would be in the backyard. He'd be like, we're doing X-Files, you're playing Ripley, and I'd play the other sergeant, and we'd do these games and act stuff out. And then we'd put on, his mum, Cherie, would come over with my mum, and Josh would go, let's put on a play for the parents. So we'd put on a play, and my mum is my mum's a Buddhist, so he he was like, we'll make the play about a Buddhist monk. But of course, watching all the TV he'd watched, it'd be like a Buddhist monk going on some kind of like revenge campaign and fighting and killing all these people. We put on some crazy sort of like kung fu play, you know. So I guess I had practice acting, kind of, and playing around. And I know my mum always loved she had a camcorder, and we'd always shoot little things at home, you know, stop motion and different things. So I guess I was I'd had that practice, and I went to the audition and I did it, and we had the reader, and I think I was pretending to be in the shower and mum's talking to me or something, and did that first audition, and I came out and I thought, oh, I did terribly. I did really bad. And then they called me back, and they called me back for a second audition up in Bunbury, which is the nearby town. It's like the slightly bigger town. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm going in for another audition. I was pretty nervous, and I went in, and the director was there, and we did the same scene and one more scene. I think I had pretending to have a sheep on a leash, which is part of that show and that story. And I did this, and I remember it was that moment that a lot of actors have where you walk into the waiting room and you see the other actors. The first audition, I hadn't seen anyone, so this one there were about 3 other actors sitting there waiting to go in. And I remember looking at them and going, these guys like look so much older than me. They look way more competent. They look way more confident. And I was like, oh, what am I doing here? I just really was like, why am I here? Like, surely one of these guys is going to get this role. Anyway, I did that. And then that one I didn't feel too bad about. And I think the director was like, really good job. So I was like, oh, that went okay. And then it would always be going back home, back to school, and it would be 2-3 weeks, and then the phone would ring again, and they go, okay, well, now can you come up to Perth and read with the other 2 actors who are playing the role of your younger brother and your girlfriend in the show? And so then I was like, this might be going somewhere. And so we went to Perth, and there I am with the other 2 actors. I didn't know this at the time, but that pretty much means you've got the role. I mean, they're just seeing if you can all work together as a troupe of actors, or, you know, as a cast, and chemistry test or whatever you call it. So went up there, and we all read together, and they were lovely, and we had a really good time. And I was like, you know, this could be happening. And then went back, and I think 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks. And then finally I was out in the backyard at home, and I had the shovel and the bucket, and I was picking up, we had 2 dogs, and I was picking up dog poo. And that's when they called, and my mum came out to the deck, and she just goes, Sean, you've got the part. And I was there with a scoopful of dog poo going, I've got the role. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, money. I was just a kid, and I thought, actors earn good money. I was like, does this mean I'm going to earn money? And then I, you know, put the dog poo in the thing and came inside, and then I was like, yeah, wow, I get to act on TV. I was like, that is so strange. I just didn't really know what to expect, and then obviously now that's history. So thanks to Tim, my principal, he actually said he almost threw out the letter, which was asking for the 5 kids to go and do this audition. So thanks to Tim for keeping the letter. Otherwise, I would probably not be doing acting, because it was after that role that I got my agency in Sydney. I got representation. The producer gave my mum a list of agents and said, call down the list until you find an agent for him. So that was how everything came to be. Lachie Leonard.
This is Lucky Leonard, and Busselton might not be like a big city with everything out of your hand, but at least you had a skate park. I don't know if it was already there at the time, but you could practice skating because your character called Loki did have a skateboard with a very special word written on it, which is one way.
One way. Yes. Is that? I think there's an episode where he goes down a giant hill on a skateboard. So I'm just going to close this window. We've got some construction going on outside. So yes, and you know, it was that show that we moved down to Albany to shoot that show with the whole family. And Albany's about 4.5 hours south of Busselton. So I didn't really surf. I surfed a bit, but once we lived right next to the beach in Albany, I started surfing all the time. And I surfed all the time. I started skating more, and kind of, I guess, to prepare or something, but also to just, you know, when everything's right there. And also I didn't have to go to school. So that was like another little bonus. My twin sister had to go to the local school in Albany, and I had this time off to rehearse, and then I had a bit of tutoring on set. So really that was how I started getting into the surfing a lot more. But Busselton Skate Park, I used to skate Busselton Skate Park with my friend Tyler, who lived on Geograph Bay Road. We would go there, and my other friend Julian, who lived around the corner. We would go to the skate park, even in primary school, quite a lot. At first I had a scooter. I had a red scooter that ended up getting stolen. But then my mum found it. She actually got it back. And then after that, a skateboard. But yeah, we used to go to the skate park a lot, and I also used to skate out the front of my house a lot. We had, especially during HSC or TER, which is our like final year of school, final 2 years. I used to, I was a crammer when I studied. I'd study in short bursts, and I really loved procrastinating. So my procrastination was to go out and skate on the street when I should have been studying. And our next door neighbour, Tiffany, had 2 kids who'd come out, and they'd be on their scooters and I'd be skating. So odd bunch out on the street. And yeah, that was but Lockie Leonard was the move that got me into surfing a lot. I used to go down and surf Muttonbird Beach in Albany. And that was where really I got past the stage of surfing of being painfully bad to not so bad, good enough to be out there for a few hours and have fun. Because other than that, before that, it's a war of attrition. You're just going, I've got to get past this stage to start having fun. So yeah, Mum would drop me down at Muttonbird Beach, and I'd be out there for 2-3 hours just surfing my heart out, which was special.
And Sean Rex Keenan, this television series is extremely funny. With, for example, some special title, Zigzag Hill, The Silence of the Frog, but also Snake Hide Oil.
Snake Hide Oil, yes. I remember, Snake Hide Oil. That was an episode where, a great Australian actor, Reese Muldoon, played my dad, the Sarge, because in that show my dad's a police officer. So Sarge, and I know Reese had written that episode. He wrote that episode with the director Wayne Blair, and that was my first time maybe seeing an actor. Well, I'd never. That was, the start of me seeing someone really just go for it with something he'd obviously written it. He thought it was hilarious, but it was the Sarge playing this kind of alter ego of himself, and he had snake hide oil, and he was like this whole thing, and it was hilarious. He was in like I think he was in like a snakeskin suit or something. It's a long time ago, but yeah, Reese Muldoon, he is such a funny guy, and him and Wayne wrote that episode together, and shooting it, getting to see them shoot it, and how much fun they were having. You know, we had a lot of fun shooting that show, and I was really lucky that that was my first job, because it was kind of, you know, you don't get shows like that that often, you know. We have a fantastic show in Australia here called Round the Twist, and it was about this family growing up in a lighthouse where all these crazy things would happen to this family. And the theme song was like, strange things happen, you're going round the twist, and it was like this crazy family, and all weird episodes, like one episode, which is one of the weirdest, where their son Bronson swallows a fish, and it gets stuck in his willy, and it makes him a really good swimmer. So I'm saying this show is absurd. It was absurd, and it was a kids show. And Lockie Leonard was kind of the last of its kind in that way, that it didn't shy away from, you know, it got really absurd, and it also had a lot of dream sequences where things are happening, and I'd be tar and feathered, or I'd be dressed in a chicken suit, or Reese would be there in his snakeskin suit, and but it also had, you know, some great themes of growing up and wet dreams for the first time, and kind of things that people, and especially young kids, just are too afraid to talk about because it's embarrassing and they don't want to talk about it. And this show was a great way to kind of, I think, make that funny, and it is funny, and it's pretty special. It was a really great show, and yeah, I just remember when I read the books, it was kind of an education in a way, reading those books, and I think the show really didn't shy away from sticking to that as well. So pretty wacky. We have some pretty wacky TV here in Australia, I must say. Particularly then, we had some wacky TV, and in the 90s. So yeah.
Absolutely. Sean Rex Keenan, Lucky Leonard was a show that was the first of its kind, with very important subjects that you were tackling, and I was very inspired by the final episode in season 2. I don't know if you still remember it, but this is basically a dinner that you took around some candles. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh God, I can't remember this. Is this is it with Vicky Streeton, the dinner, or is it with my mum? You have to remember.
I am now actually going to reveal how that television series ended.
Okay.
So it was a dinner in cycle with a lot of candles because you had a problem of electricity. And
yes,
you are ending the series with a very powerful sentence that is given with a voiceover, which is, still there's one thing about the Leonards. Whenever we find ourselves and whatever we happen to be doing, we always make our own fun.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I because in the show, we lived in a swamp, you know. The family they don't have much money, and that was another beautiful thing about the story, is you've got these parents who are doing the best they can, you know, and there it touches on also, you know, Lockie's mum struggles with mental health, and the show touches on that too. But at the end of the day, it's the joy they find in these little things they do to have fun with with the family, and they're struggling with all these kids, but you see the crazy imagination, and I think so many kids can relate to that. I knew I could. We didn't grow up with a lot at our disposal in Busselton, and it was our household was like that. We filled in these moments, and we made light of the moments that were kind of a bit of a nuisance or a struggle, and like I remember one time in our house, the backyard completely flooded. Almost all of Busselton flooded at one point, because the funny thing, Busselton was actually built on a swamp. So, but we just got boats and we hopped in the backyard and we were paddling around in our boats in the backyard. But yeah, that's why the show was so beautiful, because they lived in this swamp, and we shot in two different houses because the first house got sold from season 1, but they were really built on a swamp, these houses that we shot in. And there was the houses that they'd made to look, like the Leonard's house was always in disarray, and bits and pieces everywhere, and kids everywhere, and his brother wets the bed. But at the heart of it was these parents who were just doing the best they could to give these kids the greatest childhood they could. And I think so many parents, that's their mission in life, is to give their kids that feeling of joy and that they deserve growing up. And so that's a very fitting ending. You've jogged my memory, but yeah, that's very Lucky Leonard.
This was a very fitting ending, and not only the show ends with that voiceover, but also the entire family is standing up and dancing on the music by Depeche Mode called Just Can't Get Enough,
Just
a
Can't
song
Get Enough.
released
Just Can't Get, yeah.
in 1981.
Yes. Great soundtrack. They had a great soundtrack to that show. Yeah, I mean, so many great moments. I haven't seen Lucky Leonard in years. In probably a decade, I haven't seen it. And I remember I couldn't watch it for a long time because I was still that little kid, I watch it, but I can watch it now because I look back and I have that high voice, and I'm just a kid, and I've got enough separation now for me to, I guess, compartmentalize and go, that was me then. But I kind of almost, I recognize some qualities of that young kid, but I feel like I've a different person now, and that's what allows me to watch that thing. I mean, I only watch when I do make anything. I watch it once, and then that's enough. I'm not someone who rewatches things that often, but that show, I really, people still come up and mention that show, and I think it was a really special show to people, and they still remember it and think about it, just like I think about Round the Twist as being such a fun, quirky show that I could relate to as a young kid of this. So many kids are growing up in crazy big families, and you don't have everything at your disposal, but you make do with what you have, and you exercise your mind to make it a great upbringing, and it's lovely. It's a good thing to have those shows to remind you when you're a kid that that's actually what is great about where you grow up. Yeah.
And Sean Keenan, maybe that you're actually waiting to leave the Oceanian continent to be able to rewatch those pieces of work, because you're going very soon to be doing the trip from Angelus to Los Angeles.
Yes. So, yes, Angeles to Los Angeles. Slightly different towns, those two. Only slightly different. But I'm sorting my visas in processing now. So I've been across to the States a few times, and I will be probably good to go there in about 3 months. So I'll go across and stay for possibly 6 months. I mean, I love Australia, so I'll always come back here, but I'll go across. Last year I had a big year away from Australia. I was doing a job in Thailand, set on a boat for 6 months. And it was a long marathon of a job. And then I went after that with my brother to Europe for a month. And then I went to France for 2 months to do a course at a clown school, Gaulier, it's called. So I was away from Australia for 8 months. And after the whole pandemic and being kind of landlocked for a while, I just had so much fun, and I felt so inspired being in a new place and meeting new people. And, I love Sydney. I love living in Sydney, but I also really loved being away and feeling inspired every day. And I'm pretty excited to go to LA and also travel around the States, because the States is an amazing place to travel. I've done a bit of travel down in the South and New Orleans, and I've been to Toronto and Salt Lake City and a few places, but I want to do kind of base myself there for a bit and then travel around and work, which will be a lot of fun.
It will be a lot of fun, Sean Keenan, and better than waiting to be in America to rewatch your work. Maybe, Sean Keenan, that you're going to witness the fruit of your labor during your flight on the table and the screen on the flight seat from the Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport.
Yes.
Terminal 1 for international flights to Los Angeles.
That's right.
International Airport at gate 27.
Gate 27. Well, I hope it's gate 27. You've been right about everything else so far, so I'd say it probably is going to be gate 27. Yeah, we'll see. I no better time to watch your own work than when you're on a plane. When I'm on a plane flight, I think my last plane flight back from Europe, I got up to 6 movies. I think I watched 6 or 7. I love watching movies on planes. I mean, it's a shame the screen's so small and the audio's not great, but I really get to it and I knock off a lot of movies. So maybe I'll fit in 1 or 2 of my own if they're in the in the options. We'll see.
Thank you, Sean Rex Keenan. Next time you come on VH Berries, I hope there will be between 0 or 3 hours of time difference, so I know that Rex made it to the land of liberty.
I'm sure there will. And it will be great. It will be great to be there. And I'll come to Montreal and say hi if I get a chance.